This is my CZ75B Omega and the CZ P09. They both have the Omega trigger system in them. Of course, the big difference is that this is a polymer frame and this is a metal frame. I'm going to kind of talk about what I did to both these guns. This one was minimal upgrades because I wanted that nice classic CZ look. This gun is more kind of like a duty carry, home defense type of thing. The Omega trigger system in the metal framed guns seems to smooth up better than the polymer guns. Maybe it's just because I have more rounds through this one than this one. I'm not really sure. I'm going to go into all those details and kind of explain what's going on with the internals of these guns and the Omega trigger system best I can. You know, I'm a mechanical engineer is my day job. I'm not a professional gunsmith. Take all this advice with a grain of salt, but I've got these guns dialed in the way that I like. They're totally safe. They're totally functional. And you know, looking into these trigger systems, they're pretty simple and pretty easy to do a couple things to that really make a difference in how they feel. Looking at the P09 first, Cajun Gun Works stainless steel guide rod with an 18-pound spring. That's slightly reduced power. I think the stock one is 20 pounds. It feels really nice. And then with the Pro Upgrade kit in here, you have a new firing pin that is extended on the nose of it a little bit for reliable ignition, reduced power firing pin spring. There's a reduced power firing pin safety block spring right under this guy right here. So that smooths out the take up of the trigger. So that's all that's in the slide there. This was the factory suppressor ready one with the tall sights and the threaded barrel, and I do run a suppressor on it. And then I got in the frame here, we got Talon grips. This frame is not nearly grippy enough, and I didn't want to stipple it, so I got Talon grips. They feel good. I think they look pretty cool, especially with this gray color. This is a Cajun Gun Works extended mag release. I run this, the convertible Omega trigger system. I run it in the decocker only for this, like double action, single action defensive gun. Decocker only, no thumb safety. That's how I like it, especially if I'm going to carry it. And then in here, what comes with the kit is down here, I'm running a 15-pound hammer spring. So that's reduced power. I think the factory's like 19 or something like that. And then the Cajun Gun Works hammer, the Omega hammer, comes with a new sear actuator right here. It comes with a new sear spring. What you can't see, because it's under the spring, this little guy right here, that's the disconnector. It comes with a new one of those that shortens the reset on the trigger. This little roller right here, that also smooths out the double action, because that the trigger bar kind of rolls on that little roller in double action mode. So anyways, the kit comes with a lot of stuff. It came with a reduced power trigger spring, and I did not like the feel of it. It really made the reset feel less positive. So I generally don't like running reduced power trigger springs in single double action stuff for that reason, and I left it out of this gun, although it did come with the kit. Overall, it feels pretty good. This gun doesn't have many rounds through it, only, I don't know, probably less than 200 or 300. So things are going to smooth out better. So pretty much with this gun, I threw the Pro kit in it and called it good. I didn't do any other work. I think I polished the sear face while I had the sear out to replace the sear spring, but that's it. I didn't polish the face on the hammer where it interacts with the sear or anything like that. And it's got, the double action still feels a little bit stagey and gritty. It's pretty heavy. I think with more rounds that will smooth out. It has about that much take up. You hit a wall, little bit of creep, and then a nice clean break. And the reset is not as short as I was hoping with that short reset kit, honestly. But it's still pretty good. This is still a really nice single action trigger, and the double action feels pretty good. I can pull it out of the holster and still get really nice, accurate first shots off in double action. So I got my trigger pull gauge here. I just tried to do the double action. It maxed it out, so it's over about 9 pounds. Slightly under 4 pounds. Kind of trying to put the trigger pull gauge right where I put my finger. And again, consistent, just right under 4 pounds. So this is pretty nice stuff. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. So this gun is an Omega, so it did come with the same trigger that the P09 has, and honestly, that's a really comfortable trigger. But I wanted the cool classic look of the CZ75B with the stainless curved trigger. So this is the Cajun Gun Works old style CZ75 Omega trigger. It comes with over travel stop adjustment, which is really nice. You can see the little set screw right there. These are lock grips. They're like the nicest G10 I've found. G10 grips, and they're really grippy, but also still that classic checkered black look. This came with a plastic guide rod. I don't like that. So this is the brand is M Carbo. They actually make a pretty great variety of high quality parts for decent prices. This is a stainless steel machined guide rod for this guy, and it was like $25 or something. In the slide here, I have a reduced power firing pin spring, and in the frame here, in the main spring is a 15-pound hammer spring. Again, I think the stock is 16 on these. It's lighter than the P09. But with those two springs and this trigger and a little bit of elbow grease, I think this trigger actually beats my P09, and I think possibly it's a little bit better and a more rigid and smooth of a system in a steel framed gun or an alloy framed gun. And also this gun has a higher round count through it than the P09. That gun's pretty new. So only two things are the spring and the trigger that I did. Guide rod has nothing to do with trigger pull, obviously. So here's that same roller. I just polished it up with some 600, 800, then 1000 grit sandpaper. I polished up where it interfaces with the trigger bar. That surface is underneath here, underneath the safety. You can't see it. I polished the sear face and I polished the hammer face where they interact with each other. And then I will get a whiteboard out to explain what I did to make this hammer match the Cajun Gun Works hammer and how easy it is. These are convertible between decocker and safety, and I run the thumb safety because, that's kind of like the, classic CZ75B setup. So what I have drawn here is this is the hammer and this is the sear. The sear pivots up this way and comes out of this little shelf, and then that allows the hammer to fall this way. One complaint about the CZ Omega trigger system is that there's a lot of creep in the single action pull, and that's absolutely correct. There is. The Cajun Gun Works Omega hammer gets rid of most of this creep. And the reason the creep is there is that the sear has to slide up this whole face before it releases the hammer. So I looked at the Cajun Gun Works hammer and I looked at my factory Omega hammer, and the only thing that's different is the height of this shelf. Possibly the materials, the finish, hardness values, whatever. Mechanically, the size of this shelf is smaller on the Cajun Gun Works hammer. It's like an $80 hammer. It's a really nice piece. But I wanted to see what I could do with the hammer that I already have. So I measured the height of this with calipers on the Cajun Gun Works. I measured the height of this on my CZ75 hammer, and I just took a file and really carefully, dressed this down. So it's about a half to 2/3 of the height that it was, and pretty much just matching the height of the Cajun Gun Works hammer. You got to be careful with this. If you do it too much, you can affect the reliability or safety of the hammer locking back and getting caught by that sear, or hammer follow as the slide goes forward back into battery, etc. But I got rid of that nasty creep by just working a file a little bit, throw some cold blue on it, and good to go. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, buy the Cajun Gun Works hammer. It's a great part, but you can do it yourself for a lot cheaper with a nice fine number 2 file or something like that. So then of course you polish the mating surfaces right here where the two metal pieces are sliding past each other. So I just did the double action trigger pull on this guy, and it's right at about 9 pounds. It's actually on the gauge. It didn't quite max it out. There's a double action. It's pretty light, 9 pounds ish. On Actually, that's not very light, but it's really just nice and smooth, not stagey, not gritty, nothing like that. Now the single action, quite a bit of take up, has a nice wall right there, little bit of creep, and then a nice break, and I've adjusted that over travel stop really nicely. So now the reset, I think, is slightly shorter than the P09, even though that has the short reset disconnector in it. And then I think, you know, largely due to like manufacturing variances and stuff like that, the performance of any given trigger upgrade kit will vary based on the firearm that you have and the tolerances of it that came out of the factory. But I mean, this trigger just feels so good. So go ahead and yeah, 3.5 pounds. Slightly over 3.5 pounds. And so, you know, maybe it's not correct of me to compare the metal frame Omegas to the P09 and P07 Omega system. I mean, they have exactly the same components. They look completely interchangeable to me. Certainly this one is likely going to feel different because it's in a metal frame as opposed to the other one being in a polymer frame. This has a higher round count through it and is better broken in. I mean, this thing is just slick as snot. Well, that's what I've done to these two guns. I'm really happy with both and how both of them turned out. This is like a great duty combat, full-size carry, suppressor host. This is just a really nice shooting, good feeling, classic looking CZ75